Welcome back, everyone, to our first #HireMe 2023 employer panel for this year. And our panels are hosted by BCJobs.ca. So my name is Chelsea, and I'll be your BC Jobs host for today's panel. So a couple housekeeping things. If you would like to have closed captions, words at the bottom so you can read instead of listen, maybe you're tuning in from work or a place where you can't listen to audio, or for other reasons, at the bottom of your screen, there should be, I've seen a couple different screens. So if it's not directly at the bottom that says closed captions, which you can click on, and then you can choose your language feature. There's also on the far right, there's like 3 dots that says more. And if you click on that, there should be closed captioning or it says captions under that. And if you click that, it will come up with a language option again. So it depends if you have like the Zoom app or if you're coming in from the browser. On the phones, I'm not sure, but it's there somewhere at the bottom on the phones. Okay, so that's some housekeeping for closed captions. And if anyone has any questions or can't find it, let me know in the chat, and I can maybe help you out. Okay, so for those of you who are new to these panels, we host them every month with 3 special guest panelists from various sectors, and we have this, a little Q&A on what's new with our organizations, and we talk a bit about the job market and hiring in BC. So we're proud that BC Jobs is Western Canada's biggest online jobs board, and to stay in the loop about companies that are hiring, you can also check out our Innovators podcast to learn more about what industry leaders are saying about the job market. So before we get started here today, I want to encourage our audience to type your question for the panelists into the chat box at any point. So if you have a question that comes up, type it into the chat box, but we'll also have a Q&A section for you guys like later on in the panel today. So we will get to your questions, whether in the chat or you will have like a raised hand feature option as well. So I'll explain more about that when we get to that to that segment of our panel. So today we will also be offering a job candidate pitch event right before we start our audience Q&A. So if you've been to any of our previous events, you may have seen a couple candidates pitch themselves. So how this works is 3 candidates will be selected for a 30-second pitch to tell our guest speakers about themselves and their experience. So I'll give you more information when we get to this time, but you can nominate yourself in the chat. I'm not going to pick people randomly and put you on the spot, so don't worry. The pitch will be, like a 30-second pitch about yourself, your experience, maybe what your, hopes and dreams are, what you're looking to get out of your career, or if you're changing industries, what would you like to get into? And there is an incentive, so you will get a 30 minutes resume consultation with BC Jobs, and you'll be contacted after the event to follow up with that. So when we get to that part of our panel today, I'll give you some more instructions to remind you. And so let's get some introductions going here. I'm gonna pass the virtual mic over to Betty Jin, Senior Talent Sourcing Partner at TD. Betty, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and we'd love to know more about yourself and TD.
Thank you, Chelsea. Hello, nice to meet everybody. We have such a fabulous group today. I wasn't expecting it to be this busy, so everybody welcome. So my name is Betty. I'm a senior talent sourcing partner with a focus on retail banking at TD Bank in the Pacific region. So some examples of the positions that I would source for would include anybody you see when you walk into a bank to do your banking. So from the tellers all the way to the branch managers. And just a little bit of information on TD in case you're not familiar. We've started the business in 1855 and have grown into a major financial services company since then. So it is headquartered in Toronto, Canada. We've got offices all around the world, and we offer a full range of financial products. So that would include TD personal banking, TD securities, asset management, insurance, and wealth.
Holy smokes, 1855. I didn't know TD was that old.
We've been
That's a new fun fact for me. Oh, great to know. Well, thanks for sharing that, Betty. Great introduction. All right, we'll move over next to Carla Paradis, recruiter at Island Health Authority. Carla, thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to know more about you and, what's new at Island Health Authority.
Hi, so nice to meet everybody. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Carla Paradis and I work for Island Health. So, and I should also mention, I am on the unceded territory of the traditional First Nations here in the Comox Valley. And I am a senior recruiter. I do full cycle recruiting, mostly for a really wide variety of jobs here. I do work for Island Health, which a lot of people think is just healthcare, but we have all sorts of jobs from food services, laundry, admin, leadership, tech jobs. We sort of cover everything. It's a very huge company. We have almost 30,000 people. We're the biggest employer on Vancouver Island right now, and we really need people. So please apply, everyone.
Wow, 30,000 people.
Almost, yeah, just shy of that.
That's crazy big. Thanks for that great introduction, Carla. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Noémie Coulombe, bilingual senior recruitment partner over at BMO. Welcome. We'd love to know a bit more about yourself today and what BMO is up to.
Thank you, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. My name is Noémie. I am based in Montreal, but I'm a senior recruitment partner with BMO, and I hire both in Canada and the States. So that's why I'm here today, even though I'm pretty far from you guys. Very happy to be here. I specialize in commercial banking, so I'm the opposite of Betty. So I'm taking care of all the commercial position from a tech perspective, from the typical mortgage broker, for any roles that you may think about commercial. I will be your point of contact for Canada with my team. And I'm very happy to see you here, and hopefully you're going to apply and have a quick chat with me after the call. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for that great introduction. All right, now that we know our panelists a little bit better, I've got a few of my own questions that I'm going to start us off with before we move over to our pitch event and our audience Q&A. So these next questions are geared more towards what's new at the organizations, companies for this year, for 2023. And I'll start off with Carla. So Island Health Authority represents the health sector of Vancouver Island, as you just mentioned. So coming out of a pandemic, how has the health sector transformed?
Yeah, that's a great question and a complicated question.
I don't ask the easy ones.
Pandemic and healthcare, but yeah, I think overall it made Island Health need to really think outside the box, be very collaborative, innovative. We had to think really quickly, especially with all the immunization clinics that had to be thrown up really fast. And as an outcome of that, we now need more people more than ever. So that was the result of the pandemic, was big need for all sorts of jobs.
Wow. So my next question here is for Noémie. So BMO has almost 50,000 employees across Canada. How does a large organization like BMO stay on top of technology trends?
So this is a great question, and something I particularly like to talk about, because I do a lot of technology roles right now within commercial, but within BMO, we have so many different roles that can be related to technology. But at BMO, we're investing our time in technology through innovative product. And we have different team that you might not see in terms of technology within banking. So we have people working in AI, in data analytics, cloud engineering. We have UX designer and researcher. Cybersecurity is a big one now too. We have developers, operation, just to name a few that we're constantly growing in terms of technology, and to be relevant on the market and making sure we offer the best services for our client worldwide. So technology is mainly part of our 5 pillars at BMO. One example I can share right now is about our commercial platform. So we have a very strong UX team that designed that commercial online banking platform. We also have one for retail, and we have won an award for being the first Canadian bank to offer an API developer portal and virtual account capability. So technology for BMO has been the main focus and part of our development and success, basically. So that's pretty much it.
Right on. Okay, very cool. So my next question, we're going to go over here to Betty. So TD has almost 90,000 employees, according to LinkedIn, across Canada. What are some winter and spring initiatives that you've got going on this year at TD?
That's a great question. And to be honest, I don't even know where to start because there are just so many things going on at TD when it comes to community type initiatives. So I guess I can share a couple of my personal favorites.
Okay.
One is geared towards internal employees and one is open to everybody. So for the 10th year, actually, we're actually presenting another 70 students with our Achieve the Dream Scholarship. So that's $2,500 to put towards their first year of university or any kinds of post-secondary education in 2023. So this is something that is geared towards relatives or children of our current TD employees, and it really falls under the pillar behind how we value education. So it is based on their academic excellence, their leadership skills, community involvement, and if they have any work experience. So this is one of my favorites. As you may be able to tell, I love education, and something that is open to the public is on the topic of financial literacy. So TD does have we call it the WOW Zone financial education program. So it's free and it's designed to help students from kindergarten to grade 12 to learn about money. And that is such an important life skill that, maybe sometimes going through the regular programs, we don't have enough information on. So this is one of my personal favorites, and we provide them with tools and courses on money management, investing. There's kind of a free to invest little pillar that we do as part of the program, just to help them build a strong financial future. So those are two of my favorites, and they are ongoing. So definitely check them out on our website.
Those sound like amazing initiatives, especially the financial literacy for youth. Amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
I definitely needed that when I was younger.
Me too.
All right. My next question is going back over to Carla. What are the hiring needs and solutions in the health sector and or for island health, in your opinion?
Yeah, so to touch on the last question that you asked me, going into that a little bit, the hiring needs are huge and vast, and I'm happy that I get to be transparent about. A lot of people think Island Health is just nurses and clinical roles, care aides, doctors, but we have so many other roles, and I don't know if there's anywhere within Island Health that we aren't hiring. So the needs are that we need people everywhere, and from entry level to senior to middle jobs to all over the place. So it's definitely worth applying if you're interested in living on Vancouver Island. And I think going forward, we're going to be expanding outwards, off the island, as we have been doing a little bit into BC and all of Canada as well, to bring people over here to the island to help us.
Oh, fantastic. So you have maybe some remote positions open for people who are like on
right now we do have some remote positions because of post or during the pandemic. A lot of people had to start working remote. Obviously with the clinical roles, nurses, all of those people still have to go to their jobs to work with patients. But I work from home. They do usually want you to live on Vancouver Island, but there's, it depends who the hiring manager is. It's worth applying, asking.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I often get asked, which companies are hiring remotely? So, people are still interested in that option if it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question is back over to Noémie. So what are some internal or community projects that you're launching this year at BMO?
So this is a tough one as well. If it's like Betty having a big bang like TD, we have a lot of projects ongoing. I think BMO has a big focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion with our zero barrier inclusion, but also from our partnership with various Indigenous communities across North America. Just to give you an example as well, with different partnership that we have within the community is with the LGBTQ2S plus community, which I'm part as well. That makes me really proud is that BMO has been recognized in 2022 as the Bank Administration Institute Global Innovation Award for having a program. It's called the Bank's True Name Partnership with MasterCard, making you eligible to have your own personal name or preferred name that we call on your credit card and your own banking information. Something else that makes me proud to work at BMO, because you're all looking for a job right now and wanting what can BMO offer to you, is a practice internally that we do for the community, for wherever you are. So it's called the Employee Giving Campaign, and it's basically BMO will match any donation done to any charity locally or wherever you want to support, from a bird sanctuary to a shelter that you want to do, and it will be matching. And in 2022, we reached a breaking record of 31 million in terms of donation, compared to 2021 of 23.5 million. So I think it's great because the employee get to choose their own cause and do the donation, and BMO will match the donation. So it gives an impact for everyone within the community. Everyone has a little bit of a say in what they're willing to give us.
Oh, that sounds amazing. 31 million last year. That's a crazy figure. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's and so the charities have to be registered charities in order for donations to be matched. Is that right?
Exactly. So we have a list, depending, you can filter them by location or by any sector you want to give. I personally myself chose three. One for a bird sanctuary because I love animals and I have 3 birds at home, and but also indigenous shelter based in Montreal. And another one was if I remember correctly, it was another shelter for women in Montreal, once again, in terms of conjugal violence. So you can basically choose any sorts of charity you wish to give if they're registered properly, and BMO will match a donation. So that's great.
Fantastic. Oh, that's really great to know. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'll keep that in mind for sure. Okay, last question here for Betty. How does TD give back to communities, and are you supporting any new community projects this year?
Again, there are so many that we are working on, but thank you for the question. I think it can be categorized under our big umbrella of our TD Ready Commitment Network. So this is our colleague engagement platform where it focuses on 5 core pillars. Number 1 being volunteering, number 2 being giving and fundraising, number 3 being group experiences, number 4 being community leadership, and number 5 being learning. So under each of these different categories, we are able to really go into our local community based on where our branches are located, and really work with whoever that is interested in the year and that needs our support at the time being. On an annual basis, I would say, United Way, as an example, is a big organization that we always partner with, whether that is through monetary donations or our employees giving our time. But in Vancouver, for example, there's an organization called Beauty Night Society. So even as something that is smaller like that, where we go over and apply cosmetics and makeup for women that are in need, that is a group that we can definitely support as well. So I would say overall, it comes back to the interest of the employee and what they want to be most engaged with.
Fantastic. All right, well, that ends my little series of questions. So thank you all for answering all of my burning questions. It's great to know more about your organizations and the exciting things going on for you this year. So next up, before we dive into questions from the audience, I'm going to invite people from the audience to nominate yourselves here in the chat. So in the chat, you can put your name and your location and your job industry, and I'll type this into the chat in a second. And I'll pick the first 3 people who nominate themselves to pitch yourself in 30 seconds to our panelists today. So this is a great way to brush up on those, rusty public speaking skills and put yourself out there. I know we've got a big group today, so it might seem a little daunting, but if you're feeling brave and, ready to pitch yourself, getting ready for those interviews coming up, I imagine, you can put your name, your location, and your industry or area of expertise into the chat. So I'm just going to put the instructions here in the chat for everybody to see. So this is our pitch event today. And then after our pitch event, we will dive into the questions that I see coming up here in the comment box. So don't worry, we'll get to your questions soon. So we'll put here, so name, location, and industry. Okay, so just popping this in here. All right, I see some people. All right, nominating themselves. All right, we've got some brave souls. Okay, so we've got Jay. Okay, Jay is our first person to nominate themselves. So Jay, are you okay? I see you on screen. If you want to unmute yourself, we would love to learn more about you. So the floor is all yours, Jay.
All right, I have 30 seconds, so I better make good use of this.
I mean, I'm not timing you, so if it's 31 seconds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hi, bonjour. I'm Jay. I'm from Korea originally. I'm a recent university grad. I finished studying psychology, linguistics, and French from Montreal. I have a background in the military. I did 2 years of service back in Korea as an Army engineer. I'm greatly interested in building teams and working with people. We have a saying back home, the job is never hard, people make it hard. And so I want to be someone that makes it not hard as possible. I just finished the web development bootcamp. So I'm seeking a job in web development. I have a huge interest in a variety of technologies and working with people to build products, hopefully to make everyday people's lives easier and more effective.
Great pitch. All right, maybe Carla's got a follow-up question for you. Sorry, I'm throwing you on the spot, Carla.
Yeah, no, that's great. Nice to meet you, Jay. So you're in web development. So what languages do you speak in the tech world?
Well, very good question. So the bootcamp kind of bootstraps us with like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all the basics that you need for web development. And they give you a few extras like React and backend stuff like Express. I personally have recently just finished kind of working on stuff with GraphQL, which is very exciting for like mobile stuff. It's very effective in that domain. And also with other kind of mobile developments called React Native. It's for building simple mobile apps very quickly.
That's great.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Any follow-up questions from Betty or Noémie?
Et si vous voulez faire ça en français, je peux aussi répondre en français, Noémie, si jamais.
Super bon français, impeccable.
My French is so rusty, I have no idea. All right. Wait. Okay, great pitch, Jay. All right, I'm going to go to our next pitch candidate, and I believe it's B. Is that correct? B, I see you've got. Okay, you're on camera. You've unmuted yourself, and the floor is all yours. Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, I'm going by B most of the time nowadays. Actually, just finished a boot camp along with Jay. So
cool.
Very similar situation. Hi, Jay. Yeah, transitioning from a background in long-term baking, and also I was just about done school to become an elementary school teacher, but decided I would transition into something that I had been thinking about for a long time, which was web development. Yeah, so I'm looking at getting a job in that, kind of strongly passionate about, once I get into the industry, really working on, strong DEIB practices, especially advocating for, LGBTQIA plus, employees and, trying to, be a strong icon for people like that. Yeah. That's basically me.
Nice to meet you, B. I'm going to throw you over to Noémie for a follow-up question.
Hi, Jay. How are you? Not Jay, so sorry. I'm still in the chat answering question. So I wanted to know, how do you see yourself in a couple of years? What type of role you think would be the next step in your career after getting that experience from that boot camp?
Yeah, so in a couple years, I see myself still in a sort of development role. Eventually, I definitely see myself going more towards a leadership role. I have a lot of history in management, and I have a really strong team focus and working on building a really strong, really happy team. That was always, working around as many corporate practices as I could to make sure I had a really healthy, really strong, really inclusive team. So yeah, a couple years, probably still development, because I don't think management opportunities really open themselves up within, 2 years. But yeah, down the line, definitely I see myself going into more of a management role.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, well, great pitch today, B. I'm going to move over to our last pitch candidate. And I know more people have nominated themselves, and I really appreciate that. But maybe we'll get to some of your questions when we open up the floor to general questions. So I'll choose the next person on the list here, and it is Max from Victoria.
Gosh.
Welcome, Max.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I'll keep it quick. I'm also a web development bootcamp grad. I'm transitioning from the legal industry, and I do have a bit of experience programming, just kind of in passion projects. I've always been really interested in virtual reality. I actually, before the Oculus Rift came out, I had one of the dev kits, and writing a little bit of C# to get it up and working was so incredibly fun that last year I quit my amazing job and took a Lighthouse Labs bootcamp where I sort of shaped up my HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and as well as React skills. I'm also pretty fluent in PHP, jQuery, and lately I've been learning Python. And I have a lot of background in design and communications, and I'm kind of just looking for any position, any dev position, either front end or full stack, where I can just learn a lot very quickly and work with an awesome team.
Amazing. I recognize only a handful of those languages you just mentioned. I'm like, I know HTML.
Yes. Tom from MySpace always did us right. He taught us all HTML and never stole our personal information, and then just retired. So the site retired now as a photographer.
I think I was part of a breach from them back in the day, password breach. And I'm like, well, I haven't really changed my password since, back 15 years ago. So
yeah,
it's out
good
there.
Opportunity to do so, yes.
All right, I'm going to throw you over to Betty for a follow-up question.
Hi, Betty.
Thank you. Hi, nice to meet you, Max. And before my question, I just want to make a note that when you first started speaking, it reminded me of my favorite radio host.
Oh, I actually had a radio show. I had a radio show on CITR. Shameless plug. If you're in Vancouver, listen to CITR 101.9 FM, UBC's campus community radio.
Oh, no way. Yeah, you're definitely professional.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Maybe you heard him on that.
I also used to do webinars for my old job.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, my question is more around curiosity on how you see that virtual reality and now on the tech side going to help you in the future with your legal backgrounds. Do you see that? Oh my gosh. In some way?
So I was actually responsible for setting up, when we got bought out by a company called Veritext out of the US, so the biggest court reporting firm across the US. I was actually responsible for starting our Skunkworks team. And that was where we would look at advanced technology and kind of try and determine, okay, where might things be going in 5, 10, 15 years? Because we kind of have to make these big strategic decisions. And one of the things that we did see was that there was going to be, more telepresence. It's expensive to ship lawyers around the country. So one of the ways that we thought we could kind of see this happening was one through VR, through the metaverse. So, we've got our virtual reality headsets, but also, other technologies like digital twinning, where you can kind of have a digitally mapped room where you can have the same people in it, or AR stuff, like if you want to fit, like if there's a legal case involving, say, a boat engine, you know, and it's weighs 200,000 kilos, you might not be able to bring that into the courtroom, but you can bring in an iPad with a digital model, and you can kind of virtually move around it. So there's a lot of exciting places where advanced technology can kind of fit into the legal industry, which is a little bit maybe more conservative, but there's a lot of opportunity for cost savings and time savings too. You know, time is money, of course.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, great pitch today. And great pitch to all you three. Well done. You nominated yourself so quick. And I also saw some more, you know, some more people nominate themselves in the chat. So a lot of brave folks today, just getting out there. So keep an eye on your email inbox for an invitation from me to a resume consultation from BC Jobs. Maybe later today or tomorrow, you should get an email. So keep an eye on your inbox, and well done. So now what I'll do is I'll open up the floor to general questions. I'm just going back through the chat, and I see a question from Sylvia back in the chat. So Sylvia, and your question was for Carla. So if you want to jump on screen here and ask your question to Carla, we'll start off with you first. And then I'll just double check if I missed any other questions in the chat. Otherwise, if you have a question right now, feel free to raise your hand, not physically, but you can find the reaction button at the bottom of the screen. It's got a little smiley face. And if you click on that, you will see a raise hand feature. Now I'm clicking on it, and now I'm not seeing the raise hand feature. Okay, but it should be in there. Okay, perfect. Okay, so Sakshi, you've got that up. Perfect. I'll come back to you. So Sylvia, are you
yes, hello.
Here? Okay, perfect. All right, we'll start with your question first for Carla.
Yeah, so thank you everybody for having this event. It's always good to hear from the other side. I'm a kinesiologist. I have 9 years of experience as a kinesiologist, first helping injured workers, and then I saw that a lot of people got hurt unnecessarily because of poor movement, lack of strength. It's actually one of my big passions is helping people move better and avoid injuries to begin with. So I actually switched to personal training because ideally we want to, by the time people get injured, it's already too late. But I'm also making another transition career-wise now. I just got my diploma in data science from Lighthouse Labs. So I'm looking for a role. I'm actually exploring careers where I can really use my passion and knowledge in health science and behavior change, and also my interest in data science and machine learning and tech, and combine that into a rewarding career that makes use of my experience as well as my strength for problem solving and analyzing. So I guess the tricky thing is now I'm starting from square zero in that I don't really have a ton of direct experience in analytics or data science, aside from school, and at least on paper, it doesn't look like it, although I've done analysis in other parts of my job and I have a Master of Science degree, but I'm finding it really tricky to actually get like calls back for interviews. And I think part of it is probably the less experience. So I'm just wondering, Carla, or anybody has any advice on that? I don't necessarily expect you to be like, hey, I'm going to hire you for a job, but I just really want some ideas on how to best approach this new phase of my career.
Yeah, that is such a good question, and something that so many people go through, where it's a career pivot that people are going into. But I will say the fact that you've got this sort of more clinical experience in the background and you're moving into something else is awesome experience. Make sure that you're really highlighting it. It is true that sometimes it depends on the role, it depends on the hiring manager, it depends on what the competition looks like at that time. But make sure that you're highlighting, whatever your years of experience are with the new role that you're wanting to go into. So with the data science analytics, even if it's with school or volunteering or stuff that you've done at home, it doesn't have to be, something that you've officially had as a role. I really think that, any experience that you've had, and if you're passionate about it, that's going to come through. Another thing that you can do is also apply to get into another role that maybe you think you'd have an easier time to getting into. And then from there, it can sometimes be a lot easier to network with those people within some of these larger organizations. And then that's an easy way to then pivot over to your dream job.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. That's good to keep hearing that other experiences can kind of count towards that. And you mentioned my passion will show through, which is great if I can meet somebody, but if
Yeah.
I'm just applying through an online application,
Yeah.
what's the best way to show that?
So
I do reach out to people through LinkedIn to see if they're willing to chat with
awesome.
me, but most of the time they don't actually respond back in my experience.
I know, it's such a shame on LinkedIn. That definitely happens a lot. Reach out to me. I'll talk to you on LinkedIn.
Okay, great.
But yeah, I would say that making sure, so for example, not knowing your exact history, but and what your experience has been in, but it is true that some people will say, let's say for an example, somebody says they want 5 years of experience in order to go into this role. Some people really stick to that, you know, exactly, whereas other people are going to be more lenient and say, okay, well, I can see that they've done this in school and it looks like they've been really resourceful here. So what I would say on your resume is show everything. So show the projects that you worked on, even if it's at home or at school. Show the little things that you've done to help count towards the time frame that the hiring managers or recruiters might be looking at, so that, and make it really clear what you've done, so that, you know, and look at the job description as well. So whatever job description you're looking at, if they say they want a certain amount of years, try and show that in the resume, because that's what they're going to be sort of breezing through. They're going to look at the time frame that you've been doing something. If it's tech, do you have the languages that we're using here, or have you shown that you can learn these new languages for any of the web people on here? And I'll also shoot my personal email in here as well, so that, you know, I do have access to who these hiring managers are. I can reach out to them on your behalf. We can have an introduction together. I can learn more about you. And then that can sometimes help get yourself noticed within these competitive roles.
Okay, great. Thank you. And one quick follow-up on that. So you mentioned to show all the experiences. I've been told by many career advisors to keep the resume to 2 pages. Is that something I should stick with? Because I'm finding that a bit tricky to show everything.
There is a there's definitely a sweet spot there. You do not want to have a really cluttered resume. You do want to keep it clear, but you can do that in point form, right? You can say, you know, created this project. This was the impact that made. This is what I did. I would definitely agree with previous people that you've spoken to. Keep it short and sweet. Don't have big, long paragraphs, but you know, find a way, look online, Canva. There's ways that you can write that out so that it's clear, but also shows the impact that you made and what you've done.
I'm going to echo
great.
Carla
So
too.
much.
Canva is wonderful. There's a lot of templates on there for resumes, very user friendly. And yeah, you can put things in point form just to kind of condense all the information if you have a lot of projects.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great question, Sylvia. All right, I'll move over next to Sakshi. Been waiting so patiently. Is your question for one of our panelists today, or is it just anyone?
It's a general question, actually.
Okay,
it's a general question. So essentially, I am a lawyer from India, and I had experience in banking and finance sector back in India. I'm very new to Canada, and I wanted to understand what is the best way, as somebody who's interested in getting into banking and finance operations in Canada, what is the best way, the certifications that I could obtain to be, you know, noticed by employers in the banking sector. So my question would actually be more suitable for Betty, I believe. Yes, but it's a general question to all recruiters.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll start off with Betty, and maybe if Noémie has some like additional thoughts, you can add yours as well.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Nice to meet you, and thank you for the question. Yeah, definitely. I work with many candidates that are in similar situations as yourself. One of the best ways we always recommend is to get a foot in the door through mostly retail banking. If you were to look into financial advice, there are certain licenses that are required of you, for example, the IFIC or CSC. But prior to that, you know, getting acquainted with the environment, learning about whichever bank that you decide to partner up with, it's a really great way and grassroots level to understand how the banking system works in Canada. So I would definitely start there. And then once you're able to be more comfortable and gain more experience as you work towards your designations, then slowly you can definitely transition to behind the scenes. And just TD as an example, there are so many different career paths. We all start somewhere. And to give you an example, my current manager in talent acquisition, she started as a teller in retail banking. And now she wants to do HR, and now she's, overseeing the team in Canada. So definitely keep your eyes on the prize, but a step at a time as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, great question. Noémie, did you have any additional thoughts you wanted to share or add to that?
No, it's exactly like Betty. Actually, I have the same journey as her manager. I also started as a bank teller during my studies. So I think getting the foot in the door is going to be your best way to get a role in banking, especially if you're coming with overseas experience. We have a lot of managers interested in that overseas experience, even though it was not properly in banking. But once you have your foot in the door, you'll be able to have those connections internally, have those chats with these leaders to present that overseas experience. So I think looking at more entry-level role, not necessarily a call center, but as she mentioned, the retail banking is the best way to enter banking in the future. So
I tried getting my foot in the door, but for some reasons, I'm considered overqualified for a customer service role and underqualified for a lawyer role. So I am in that place where I'm not able to identify as to how to approach this. That is the only problem I'm facing. Anyways, thank you so much for your responses.
I'll pop my email in the chat, and do feel free to send me your email or your resume, and then we can take a look. And just another note, through getting that entry level role, you're actually setting yourself up for success. So when you do move into operations, you know exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And working.
Absolutely. I'm open to that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Betty. Thank you.
No worries.
Perfect. All right, great question, Sakshi. All right, Aldwin, you've been waiting so patiently as well. Thank you. And is your question geared towards one of our panelists or to all three?
It's kind of a general question and kind of a piggyback on what Sylvia was saying. Just like her, I'm also a recent grad from Lighthouse Boot Camp, transitioning from project management to web development. And I guess my question is, it's been very general, but do you guys find that those that switch industries find success in their new roles? Or do they struggle a bit more? Or is it just, typical day for them kind of thing?
All right, maybe I'll pass your question off maybe to Carla first to answer. You've got any thoughts on that?
Sure. So to clarify, going from one role into another role and starting from the bottom and how that goes, is that right, Aldwin?
Yeah, I was just wondering if people that did that kind of found like great success, or did they struggle quite a bit? Or
yeah, you know what?
Like what stories have you guys heard?
Yeah, I really think that all comes down to the individual person and how much passion and drive they have. In my experience, if someone's really into what they're doing and they're starting from the bottom, they're going to show that ambition, that resourcefulness, the excitement. They're really going to want to come to work and do those things, and they end up doing really well in their role. I've started my career over a few times, and that makes a difference. If you're passionate about it and you're into what you do, then you're probably going to do well. And having if you're going into something where you're just doing it and it's not really something you're into, then maybe you won't see the success. But I would say everybody's individual in that sense, but I've definitely worked at places where I've seen huge success from people starting over at all different ages.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I hope that answers your question, Aldwin.
I have like 5 more, but I'll put my hand out.
Okay, hold on to your questions. I've got one from Patrick in the chat, and then I'll pop over to Eunice, and then after Kevin, maybe I'll get back to you then, Aldwin. How's that? Okay. All right. So Patrick, are you still with us? You had a question about getting into HR.
Yes, sorry, it's very late here. I'm calling from Ghana, or I've dialed in from Ghana, so it's quite late here. So I'm unable to turn on my camera.
No
But
worries, no worries.
Great. So my question is, I'm relocating to Vancouver in April to do an MBA. Currently, I'm with a multinational bank with HR background. I have certification in CPHR. So I'm kind of prepared to move into an HR role in Canada, specifically in Vancouver when I get there. But my question currently is how easy it is to search for a role whilst I'm still outside Vancouver now. So my question is if there are any advice on how someone who is outside Vancouver relocating in April, how I can go about looking for a role from outside the country. Thank you.
Really great question, Patrick. Before I pass you off, I just want to double check. When you relocate to Vancouver, you mentioned to study an MBA. Will you have a study work permit to work in Vancouver, in BC?
Definitely.
You will. Okay. Okay. So there won't be any issues with you working. It's not like a co-op program or anything like that.
No.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So you'll have legal work status here. Okay. Maybe I'll pass you off to Betty. Maybe you might have some tips on how to get into HR in Vancouver.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think you're off to the great start already by attending this event and introducing yourself. And really, these virtual type of events are one of the best ways to really kind of meet people face to face as much as possible. I do have, many candidates that reach out from overseas. I think what you need to do is really consolidate a batch of job postings of your dream job and maybe a few jobs leading up to that, and really look at what are the common themes, the common certifications, the common experiences, and the common projects that these dream jobs of yours typically require of you. So that way you can actually tailor your application package, including personal messages on LinkedIn as an example, to target whatever your findings are. So personalization, I think, especially if you're overseas, is key. And in your messaging, make yourself human, like keep it short and sweet, and then attach the package. And you're not looking to get that dream job tomorrow. You're looking to have a conversation. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. We're really closing to the next conversation. And then from that conversation, we'll see what's going to happen after that.
I hope that give you some more insight onto finding work in BC.
Sure, it does. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick. All right. Our next question is coming from Eunice.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you for hosting this, first of all. I think
absolutely.
My question is to the whole panel. It's just a general question. It's so I'm currently working with Work BC as a special customized employment development specialist. Essentially, I work with individuals with disabilities, or as we call them, diverse abilities, and has multiple barriers to employment. And having been in this position for almost a year now, I noticed that a lot of the banking companies are open to hiring inclusively, but I'm just not sure who to directly contact, who would be able to kind of talk more about or discuss about, a possible partnership where I can provide essential skills or talents or potential applicants, and how we might be able to kind of offset some of the tasks that the service has, or like a bank has, that we might be able to provide a more smooth operations for the service, for the banking service. So yeah, I just want to know in general how to go about talking to you guys.
Great question. I'll throw your question over to Noémie, and then maybe Betty can also give you some information on how to connect maybe with the appropriate liaison person. So I'll hand you over to Noémie, and and then to Betty.
Perfect. Nice to meet you, Eunice. So there's the better way is to reach out directly to Recruit on LinkedIn. I get a lot of these requests from different type of need in terms of accommodation. So just to make sure I understand your question, I was cutting a bit on my side. You are wanting to do a partnership in terms of recruitment, sending candidate in terms of diversity. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
You're with Work
Okay.
BC,
Yes.
the unemployment agency in BC. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So what you can do is send me a quick email. We have a team working with that, with either newcomers. We have diversity inclusion teams as well. We have different teams within the commercial and overall retail banking. And this team will be the best to do those partnership and send over those candidates that might be interested in joining BMO, that may need accommodation or may need a little bit more help in terms of transferring that overseas experience as well. So just shoot me a quick email and I'll be able to put you in contact with the right people within BMO. I'm pretty sure Betty has the same teams as well over at TD that she'll be able to put you in touch to make more partnerships as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Great. Anything you wanted to add on to that, Betty?
No, thank you so much, Naomi. I'll pop my email in the chat. You can send me the information as well.
That's awesome too. Thank you.
Great question. Before I get to Kevin's question, I saw there was a question before from Maria. Maria, do you feel comfortable jumping on screen and asking your question?
Hi everyone. Yes, I put my question in the text. I'm from Peru. I work in a bank for almost 17 years. So I have a lot of experience in the bank, but my question is how this experience has value to start to work in Canada, consider that my English is an intermediate level. I speak French and Portuguese too, but like a beginner, I understand everything, but when I talk, sometimes I think it's an intermediate level, but Spanish is my native language.
Great question. Yeah, I don't know if BMO or TD have like language requirements for working within the organization. What are your thoughts on that, Noémie?
So it really depends on the role. Your English is perfect to work in banking, and those years back in Peru are extremely valuable. Banking system might differ country from country, but the basics still remains banking. So those years will be very valuable for any hiring manager seeing your CV. And as long as you're able to have that conversation with your managers and your client, that's all that matters in terms of language requirement. And the other languages that you're speaking and understanding are also a big asset. So a lot of the banks will have conversation with their client in their own native language. It's easier for them to understand the banking background, the education and everything. So these will also be an asset for you when you apply. But for sure, those 17 years, 15 years will be a big asset for you and still valuable experience, even though it's not Canadian experience, that's for sure.
Great news. And is that the same at TD?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, in certain markets, we seek out candidates that are bilingual, that are able to service, certain clients, maybe English isn't their first language either. And like Naomi had said, in banking, so much of it is building that trust. So when you can connect with somebody using their mother tongue, there's a level of trust that's already built. So definitely in your application package, highlight that point and talk about what is the why behind what your language skills can bring. And that's to build more trust.
Perfect. I hope that answers your question, Maria.
It's perfect. Thank you.
Maybe out of curiosity, for those of you who are wondering, maybe Island Health has an English language requirement. I'll pass this over to Carla.
Maria, you definitely speak perfect English to come and work over here. We do have, it's role dependent. So I know for some of the food services, I can't remember the names of the levels. I want to say level 2, but definitely Maria, your English is, and yeah, I agree with what they said. You speak 4 languages. We're a multicultural, country. That's a huge asset in any place that you apply to.
Perfect. That's great to know. Yeah, I have heard, it's role dependent. Like if you're, a nurse, you have to have a certain level of English for the role. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay, Kevin, thank you for waiting so patiently. You are up next. And is your question geared towards one panelist or to all 3?
My question's more in general.
Okay, perfect.
So I feel like I differ a little bit from a lot of the attendees here. I'm not really switching careers. I don't really have any career history. I have work history, but not really any like advanced career to speak of in my past. I've finished, like many people here, I finished a data science boot camp at Lighthouse Labs. So how do I compete with people who are switching careers? And like if I like, I'm looking for like internships or junior roles in data analysis, data science, or machine learning, but I'm not super knowledgeable about a given industry's needs when it comes to those things. How do I make myself stand out, or how do I approach representatives of a given industry and to find out like what are the needs, and finding out like what kind of projects I could do to make myself stand out for that industry?
Really great question. Maybe I'll pass you off to Carla first, and then maybe Betty and Noémie might have some bits to add on to that.
Sure. Yeah, I think the first thing that I would do if I were you is to think about what sort of area you want to work in, and then do research on that specific area. So if you're wanting to work at a tech company and you want it, what was it you said was it data science?
Yeah, data science.
So yeah, I would say go into there. And in terms of competing against, I don't know if I would look at it like that. I think that it's good to not be super concerned with what the titles are initially, and go into something and be okay with going into entry level roles, because that's how you're going to get in. I used to work at a company called Shopify, and loads of people came in just doing customer support, and a few years later ended up being data science leaders. So it happens. You have to get in there and be okay with whatever the role is, getting into whatever your dream company is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And maybe Betty, have you got some tips on, kind of getting foot in the door, how to stand out?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great question. And networking is one thing, but also in your process of communication, really, I agree with what Carla said. It's not really a competition in any sense, but more so highlighting the benefits that you bring to the table. So the fact that you don't have a long career history you're transitioning from, you're also a blank piece of paper that is very easily adaptable and trainable to whichever industry or company that you decide to partner with. So really use that as one of the benefits that you bring to the table. And you're trainable as long as you have a great attitude and you showcase that. I'm sure many people would be willing to have a chat.
Perfect. I hope that answers your question, Kevin, and gives you some pointers.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Thank you.
Great. All right. I see a hand raised. Hope I pronounced your name correctly. Pyrulo. I'm so sorry.
No, it's
feel
fine.
free
It's Pirillo, but you can call me
Pirillo. Okay.
Yes.
So nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's I'm from Ukraine. I'm from Ukraine. This is very Ukrainian name. So
okay, well, great to meet you, and thanks for joining us today. Is your question geared towards one of the speakers or to all three?
I think all three, whoever wants to answer it. My kind of question is, so I'm still learning how to code. I'm a graduate of Lighthouse Labs, but I feel like the tech industry is kind of struggling right now, and it's really hard to get this job. What would you recommend kind of to do while you're looking for this job, other than just stay at home and code and network? Because like some people need to feed the family, right? Like I came here to do web development, but when I finish the bootcamp, it's dead. And like, I pay so much money for this thing and kind of I'm running out. So I need to do something. What would you recommend to do as close as possible to set myself to success in the future and to make, of course, make living?
Really great and important question. Maybe I'll pass you over to Noémie, and then the others might have something to add on.
Yes, absolutely. So this is something very common. We see people, especially graduating, not necessarily having that experience background. I think the best way, Carla mentioned it, Betty did too, is entering the dream company you want to and make your way up. Most of the time, your first role might not be exactly the experience you're looking for, but it will be the entry door for you to get into making connections internally and showing what you have to bring on the table. Often that's the part that you have to be okay with the role that you may have at the beginning, and eventually make the proper connection to go towards that developer background, having that coding background, meeting with the right people. And often internally within these organizations, you'll have people helping you build that network to make you go where you want to go in terms of your career. And this is something you'll often find finding a good company. So I think the main goal for you would be to find a job first. It won't be necessarily in coding, but this is something, a discussion you should have with your leader to see in the future where you want to go. And it's something achievable. Often just getting your foot in the door, it could be even in retail banking, any sorts of call center role that might not be related at all, but at least you'll get, and applying internally also helps a lot, even though not having that exact specific background for coding. It helps having those discussions you may not have applying externally as well. That might help you to have those discussions with these leader and show what you can bring on the table.
Great tips. And maybe Carla or Betty might have an add-on to that.
Sure. Carla, did you have anything?
No, I just agree with what Noémie said there. Yeah, go ahead.
I agree as well. And it's such a real life question. You need to feed the family, and at the same time, you don't want to give up what you went to school for. So thank you for being vulnerable about that. Yeah, it might not be, you got to feed the family and put the food on the table. But as long as on the side, whether it's a part-time or even if you're working on a project as a volunteer, you're continuously still building up that experience. So when the opportunity comes, you are ready to go. I think a lot of it is in the preparation, and you do what you need to do to put the food on the table.
Yeah, I agree. And networking too. It's like the more connections you make on LinkedIn, out in public, your classmates, even joining certain meetups for developers, for example, you'll make so many more connections, and you never know where a job opportunity will come from.
And sorry, just quick follow-up question. Did you guys work your way up in your companies, or you just came there at your position? What about your life stories?
Great question. I mean, maybe I'll go first. I joined BC Jobs through a personal connection. So I did not work my way up. I kind of came over from another industry. But maybe Carla's got a different story. So I'll pass it over to Carla about how you got involved with Island Health.
Yeah, I've had a super long journey towards Island Health in all sorts of different industries. I did not have a traditional, go to school. I owned my own businesses. I started a lot of places as a beginner, worked in oil field recruitment, and then owned businesses. And then I went over to Shopify as just a very beginner support role, and got super passionate about recruitment while I was there, and was able to learn from a bunch of people. And it was really just from me continually bothering people to like, please let me shadow you. Please bring me on board. Please let me help out. Please let me come over. And then that's how I gained that experience to then come over to Island Health.
Great. Thanks for sharing your story, Carla. And Betty, what about yourself?
Very similar, actually. I fell into recruitment, and I've worked at a bunch of different industries, different companies. I've also owned my own business in the middle as well. And yeah, for me, I think it's really just about not looking at it as a job title or even an industry per se, but what about that I'm doing, am I actually enjoying? And it might lead you to a place that is completely out of your expectations from when you started your journey. And and I do see a question here in the chat about whether you should be upfront about taking one role to step into another one. I have been in my past experience where, I talked to the hiring manager and said, look, this is currently my longer term plan, and I see this is how it fits in, and this is the value that I can bring, to the organization. So if it's something you're also on board with to support me while I support you, let's make this happen. If not, totally cool. So I think it comes down also to your, you know, transparency and comfortableness, how comfortable you are with that. Yeah.
And last but not least, Noémie, how's your like career trajectory gone?
So it's been all over the place. I think everyone has been changing industries and everything. But I started from the bottom, basically. I started back in retail itself. Then I joined banking as a bank teller, and finally end up in banking, but in HR. So I think not being afraid of just starting in an intro and see what. It's hard to see in the future as well. Where are you going to see yourself in 5 years? It's always a trick question, but I think it's just starting somewhere and eventually see where is bringing you is the best way to see it. And don't be scared to start at the bottom. Often it's the best step in your career. Like Betty mentioned, understanding the operation, the base of the company is going to be your biggest asset in the future when you grow up. So I think this is something, you'll see starting from a different role, your background is going to be even more rich with these experiences, even though it wasn't in the proper field. But don't be scared to start at the bottom. You'll see it brings a lot to your career, having different experiences, if it's not related.
Very encouraging. Thank you, Noémie. I hope by sharing these stories, this has helped you a bit understand, you know, you can have start your career or end up in your dream career from a majority of different places, like transitioning from a different industry, working from the bottom up. So, you know, no one's story is exactly linear, you know, but that's the way life is. Life isn't, you know, quite a linear journey, right? There's lots of like twists and turns, but those twists and turns can be very, surprising and wonderful too. So best of luck in your career journey. And I hope you find some work, in your field soon. But yeah, feel free to reach out to our panelists today and, see what positions they're hiring for that are similar to your career goals. Okay. I don't see any more hands raised, so I'm just gonna jump back over to Aldwin. Okay, there you are. And you've got your hand raised. Perfect. I knew you had some more questions.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry guys.
No, this is perfect.
As like hiring managers, do you guys have other preferred platforms that you want like candidates to use? Like right now there's LinkedIn, Indeed, like a company website. I know a few of you already posted your emails, or like what is your preferred way for us to, I guess, send you guys our CV, our resume? Or is there a preferred way, or is it just everyone kind of just, yeah.
Good question. Yeah. Maybe Carla's got some thoughts on what platforms are, most popular.
Sure. I mean, LinkedIn's it's used every day by me. I think if a role is out and you've looked for it, apply directly, and then you can also do a follow-up with the recruiter if you can see them and if you can find them on LinkedIn. I also work with a lot of people where it's just directly through LinkedIn, or we find people some other sneaky ways. There's other ways to be sleuthy on the internet and find out who's in charge of what. But yeah, I think LinkedIn for sure. That's one area I'd want to keep up to date.
I definitely agree with that. LinkedIn is a great place to meet people. It's actually how I met all our speakers today, through LinkedIn networking. So don't underestimate the power of LinkedIn for making connections. And I don't know if Noémie or Betty, if you've got any tips or on other platforms that are currently being used.
Just a quick tip for LinkedIn. I think don't be shy. Don't be scared of writing to recruiter. Not all of them unfortunately answer, but the good ones will answer. So you have 3 that will answer to you today, that's for sure. And often once you applied and you just say a quick, hey, I've applied on this role, I'm very interested. If you have a moment, we can have a quick chat. It's going to lead you to be on the top of the pile. Often we can get a lot of CVs. It's hard to go through all of them. So just that quick step of reaching out directly to the hiring managers or the recruiters will be your best asset to finding a job. And you're never bothering them. It's our job. We're happy to talk with people. We love talking with people, and we love people who's motivated enough to talk to us as well. So I think don't be shy to either. If you find our email, you can also email us. But as we mentioned, LinkedIn is the best platform to get a hold of us. We're always there, always connected. So you might have the fastest answers as well there.
I hope that answers your question, Aldwin.
Yep. I got more, but I'll let someone else go first.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? We've got a few more minutes before we start to wrap up today, so we'll take maybe 2 more questions.
I have a question, but it might get a little specific. So
okay,
if it's
we'll take a specific question.
It's about the hiring process, the interview processes for those tech jobs. I was just curious what kind of interview formats, if there's any challenges, what kind of selection goes on in your organizations.
Really great question. Who would like to take that question first?
I can go. I've been doing a lot of tech hiring right now. The process at BMO itself is, it really depends on the manager. So it's hard to tell you. We don't like to do formal interviews. I don't think it's the best way to learn about people. I think the best way you can prepare yourself for these type of interviews is just be ready to talk about yourself, the type of project you worked at. What is something that makes you passionate? When we see that passion in these interviews, that's what drives us to bring you to the next step, to the following interviews. Usually in the tech industry, you do about 2 to 3 interviews, depending with different leaders, different team members to see the fit as well. A portfolio is also always a good option for you. If you don't have honestly something you can work as well, that could be a great way to present your work other than just in Word. It might be a good support for these interviews. But just be ready to talk about yourself. We love hearing about your project, your passion. So this is something you'll see a lot within those different tech roles for banking, for all sorts of industries. We are willing to see everything you've worked on. And the whole process is not a super long process. You've seen tech in the tech industries in demand, even though it's a little bit unstable at the moment, but the process is pretty fast. So if you haven't heard any answers from someone, reach out again to the recruiter. It shows once again your passion. So I hope it helps.
Great tips for BMO. And what about for tech roles at TD?
Yeah, absolutely. So a similar kind of process, and just so you understand the context behind each of the individuals that are part of the process, typically the initial conversation with the recruiter or anybody from HR is about the company in general, getting to know you as a person, seeing if the overall fit and whether we can actually help you get to where you want to go within our organization. So a lot of your more specific questions around how does the team look like, what does the day-to-day job look like, that is with the particular hiring manager of the department, which typically is interview number 2 and or number 3. So it does get granular as you move through the process. So just be aware of what kind of questions are best suited for what stage of the process, because as we're interviewing you, you're also interviewing us, right? So you want to make sure that what you're hearing from us is also in alignment with your goals.
Okay, perfect. And for Island Health, for tech roles over at Island Health, what's the hiring process like?
Yeah, I haven't personally hired for tech at Island Health, but I've hired a lot previously. And normally there will be some sort of coding test that you're going to do. The initial one's usually pretty basic that you're going to go through. And like they said, yeah, there'll be an intro call with somebody, whether it's a sourcer, recruiter, or hiring manager. And you can look up a lot of these free tests online. So I definitely recommend going through those, making sure that you can do them, and also to work out those nerves that you might have. And then usually there'll be a follow-up, some sort of challenge that you might have to solve.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Kay.
Perfectly. Thank you so much.
Great question. Okay, and we've got a question from Jay.
Yeah, hi. So as job seekers here, like we often hear a lot about, the job market in Canada, and there's often kind of like these two like different realities we see talked about, where there's like, it seems generally there's like a massive need for workers and employees, and everyone's trying to hire, and everyone's looking for I know many people looking for jobs, working very hard to get hired. And Carla, you mentioned earlier that like, there are like large hiring needs over at Island Health as well. But like, do you think that there's like a mismatch between like the people who are looking for work and the people who are trying to hire? Is it that like the people who are trying to hire can't find the right people, or that the right people can't find the right employer and actually go and apply to these jobs? Like, why do you think there seems to be like this weird mismatch between these kind of like job searchers and like job givers?
Yeah, that's such a good question. That is, I think that, can I just jump in, Chelsea? Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, this
Yeah,
question's all yours, Carla.
That is such a good question, and I totally know what you're talking about. I think that the world has changed massively in the last few years, and then sometimes there's job seekers with hiring managers, companies that sometimes they haven't quite caught up to what's happening, to be honest. So I think that it's a matter of getting through these tough learning times right now. I think eventually it'll even out and people will be like, okay, but yeah, sometimes it's a mismatch. Sometimes there's probably a lot of varied reasons, but yeah, Island Health is so huge. I would just say continue to apply if that's somewhere that you're interested in. I know personally, I'm always working with hiring managers on being progressive, thinking outside the box. And like Noémie said about, not doing standard interviews, talking to people, finding out who they are. I love that stuff. Really getting to know that person, as opposed to back in the day, it might have been only strictly about, do you have the degree? Do you have exactly 2 years of experience? And now I think people are starting to get used to thinking a little bit more broadly about how to hire people and who do we want coming in. I hope that made sense, what I just said there.
Great question, Jay. And we'll take a last question from Sakshi before we start to wrap up. So go ahead, Sakshi.
One more question that just popped up in my head is it advisable or wise to hide some of your work experience just to get noticed? Because sometimes you're considered overqualified for a position. And as you guys said, I mean, it's okay to start as an entry-level person, which I am personally okay with. But when I send my resume as is, a lot of times I get rejections basis the fact that, you're overqualified for the position. So how do I handle that situation? I would love to hear updates from, thoughts on that from everyone. Thank you.
Really good question. I've heard this question a lot too, but I'll pass you over to over to Betty. Maybe you have some thoughts on should items be hidden in resumes? Work experience, if you have a master's degree, should you kind of like lower yourself down a little bit to get noticed?
Well, that's a complicated and loaded question, but thank you for asking. My first instinct is to say no, given the parameters that you're still keeping your resume in a clear and concise manner that is not scattered. It's not 5 to 7 pages long, as an example, right? I think a lot of it is you can always add a short summary at the top of your resume as an overview to give them. I have a wealth of experience, but right now in my current life stage, I'm looking for this. So you give them some context. I think the context is everything. And once that's there, the material after will make more sense. That's my personal take, because you've accomplished all these amazing things. Why hide it?
I agree with that. Thank you. And that's really nice.
Okay, perfect. I hope that answers your question. I think maybe Noémie and Carla might agree with what Betty was saying, unless you have a different take. Okay, perfect. I'm going to start to wrap up our panel here for today. We had so many great questions, so thank you so much for asking all these amazing questions. I'm going to pass the virtual mic back over to Noémie here to add any maybe last remarks or words of advice. So I'll pass the mic over to you, and then Noémie, Betty, Carla to add any last remarks or advice for our candidates today.
First of all, thank you, Chelsea, for organizing this beautiful event. It was very successful. We had amazing questions. It's great to see those very passionate and motivated job seekers getting and putting themselves on the line, especially those that did a pitch. It's amazing. Back when I was job hunting, I would have not been able to do that. So props to you guys. One simple advice is never give up. You'll get those refusals. It might be automatic. Never give up. I know it's not a final no. I think it's something we have to keep in mind. It can be discouraging most of the time, but if you're looking for someone, for something in your life in terms of a job, you work so much, you have to be having your job, keep going. It's just something that's going to bring you to your dream job. And even though it might be hard, you might get a lot of no's, you might not get any reply as well, keep going. I think wants to get the proper job and the proper recruiter, it will pay off. So don't give up on the job hunt. And if you have any question, reach out to me, apply on the website, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. I will be happy to put you in contact with the right recruiter if it's not within commercial, to find you the great opportunity for you. And please believe in yourself. All experience are wanted. We're looking for great people everywhere. So believe in yourself, and good luck in your search.
Love your last words of advice. Thank you so much, Noémie. Brilliant. I'll pass it over to Betty for any advice for candidates to applying to TD.
Absolutely. And again, thank you, Chelsea, and the other panelists, Carla and Noémie, for this event. I always look at recruiting and job applications kind of like dating. So don't take it personally. It's a process. The one is there for you. Every date or every interview is an opportunity for you to learn about what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you can do better, take off or get rid of for the next opportunity. So that's what I'll leave with you. Have fun with it, right? You don't know what you'll uncover.
Love that. Thank you, Betty. Okay, last but not least, Carla.
That's so true. Yeah, it was such a pleasure to meet everyone here and listen to your stories. I will follow up with that, Betty. And yes, also like dating. So imagine it, you're trying to date this person and then it's not a good match. I have such a huge network, and I'm sure everyone else here does too. I love a good pivot. Pivoting people, you know what? It's not good here, but I know another hiring manager. Always just show up, turn any negatives into positives. There's always a place for you and somewhere that is good for you to go. From there, work up into your dream role. Always something. Network all the time.
Yes. I heartily agree with that. Networking is a great way to make more business connections, but you just never know where a job opportunity is going to come from these days. So thank you thank you so much, for taking the time out of your very, very busy schedules to join us on the panel today. I've loved having you three and, listening to your stories as well as your thoughtful answers. So if anyone's looking for, new work opportunities, there's links here in the chat for BMO, TD, and Island Health, as well as the email addresses of our panelists today. So if you scroll back up through the chat, you'll find that information. I'll also leave the event open a little bit longer so that if you need a few extra minutes to find that information in the chat, you have the time. And you can also keep an eye out for our next panel happening on February 21st with Thrive Health and possibly Fraser Health Authority as well, and another panelist to be introduced soon. So keep your eye on that. You can check out our events at BCJobs.ca/events to register. And lastly, you can always shoot me an email to events@BCJobs.ca if you have any questions, maybe about the job market, or you want me to take a look at your resume quickly. I'm always happy to do that. So thank you again for all your amazing questions, the 3 great pitches today. And I hope to see you at our next event. But again, also hope that you find a job before that. So good luck to everyone today, and stay safe and take care. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.